Hello and welcome to another Flightgear tutorial. Today I want to show you the approach and landing to the old Kai Tak airport in Hong Kong. This Kai Tak airport is no longer in operation. It has been closed many years before and been replaced by another larger airport which is a few miles away from the city, and it's on an island in the ocean, in fact. And now we're on one of the two runways of the new airport, and we will just do a little bunny hop, so a test flight from the new to the old airport to show you this interesting approach pattern to the old airport, because it was something very special, almost unique around the world. I haven't been there myself, but I've seen YouTube videos of landing there from the land side, not from the ocean side, and that must have been very impressive. I will give you an impression why this is so. Let's have a look at the map for our course. Now we're here, Victor Triple Hotel. It's the new airport, and we will just do this little test flight to Victor Hotel Double X-Ray. That's Kai Tak, and as you can see, the ILS for runway 13, it's not oriented in the same direction as the runway, which is 130 degrees. It comes from a 45 degrees angle. And why is that? The reason for that is that you cannot approach this runway 13 directly, because there are very steep mountains here, so you have to get over those mountains and then would have to do a very steep nosedive in which you pick up way too much speed to make it until the end of runway 13. You would end up actually in the ocean. From the other side, it's no problem. To approach, the runway is only slightly above sea level, and so you're just approaching from the water side. From there are no obstacles. You can easily approach. But the approach from the west is very tricky, and I learned that pilots needed a special training and certifications to be allowed to do this Kai Tak approach. So I practiced it sometimes, so I hope it will be going all right today, and I want to show you how it is done in general. So our plane is ready. We're starting with very little fuel, just enough to make this short trip from one Hong Kong airport to the other. So we already started the engines. Now we go to flaps position 2, which is 5 degrees. You see it here in the display, 1, 5. Now we're going to 5 degrees. We release the parking brake. And now we're ready for takeoff. If you listen closely, you hear the board computer telling you the different speeds and also when you should rotate your front wheel. So we start with 40% of engine thrust to synchronize the two engines. And once this is stabilized, we go to full thrust now. So we rotate, retract the gear. That also shuts down one of the 3 headlights, the one that is directly attached to the main gear. But I will keep the flaps on position 2 so that we don't pick up too much speed. I want to go only slightly above 200 knots for this short flight. I don't want to get too fast, otherwise I have to use speed brakes, and that makes things unnecessarily complicated. All we have to do now is we have to find our way. VFR, so we're using visual flight rules to find the old Kai Tak airport, and it's located in the city center. So we're keeping to the right. There is this little hill right above, right in front of us, so we have to pass this little hill on its right side. Now we're too fast for our flaps position. I will reduce the engine power until we're around 200 knots. So the pilots who are doing this approach, they're using a little hill in the city center. It's called the checkerboard hill for orientation. It's their aiming point. They're aiming for this little hill, and on one hill slope it has a red and white checkerboard pattern to identify it. That's why they call it the checkerboard hill. And they're aiming directly for this little hill, and just before they reach the hill, they make a right turn to align with the runway. And that's also what we will try to do. So we have different points of orientation for VFR. There's this huge bridge here in the Hong Kong Bay. We will be flying over that bridge. There is this hill here on the left. We keep it on our left side, and then if we're lucky, we can also see that checkerboard hill in the city, and that's our aiming point before we actually do the right turn for the short final. So we are now still too fast for flaps position 3. That's why I will pitch up the nose a little. That will make us reduce speed, and then I can use 15 degrees flaps position to keep a low speed for the rest of the flight. Let's not be too fast on short final. So now we're on flaps 15 degrees, and that should keep our speed low for the rest of the flight. We can fly at around 180 knots, and we will do the landing at around 140 knots. That's at least the plan. So you can see this is Hong Kong downtown, and here, this strip here, this is the runway. There you can already see very small those white landing lights. So we're above the glide slope. We should get a little bit lower, but not too low. Otherwise, we might touch some of those buildings there with our gear once we extracted it. So it's already time to prepare for the landing procedure. Let's pitch up again to reduce speed. Let's extract the gear, and even more flaps. So here, this little thing here, this is the checkerboard hill. We're aiming for the checkerboard hill. Use even more flaps. And then we do our turn over the buildings of Hong Kong downtown. We're now above the glide slope, though, so the approach was a little bit too high. We do a tight turn and go down a little bit steeper. Make sure you're not too fast. Always have a good look at your speed. Target speed is 140 knots.
Sync rate, pull up. Sync rate, pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Sync rate, pull up. Pull up. Sync rate. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Use reverse thrust. And we can vacate the runway to the left. So there are no buildings modeled. Today, the runway does not exist anymore. When you look at Google Maps or Google Earth, the satellite pictures, you see that the runway has been completely removed. There are now cafes and stuff. So there's nothing left of the airport. We are much too fast for taxi. Speed limit is 30 knots for taxi. That's because the engines of the 777 are extremely powerful, so you should not be overpowering when taxiing. You have to be very careful with the thrust levers. Let's fold up the flaps. Okay, we're gonna park the plane right here on this square, as there are no gates anyway. So we stop, parking brake, and we can also shut down the engines. One final look from outside, and here you can see it a little bit better. This is the runway, and this is in fact the mountain that you would have to surpass if you try a direct approach. Maybe with a small propeller plane that would be possible, but not with an airliner like the Boeing 777. So that would be way too dangerous. That's why you have to do this angled approach with this ILS in a 45 degrees angle, and that makes the landing so spectacular when you're almost touching the rooftops of the buildings with your gear when you do this final curve. So this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.